Jinshin slammed into the dungeon wall, blood trickling from his mouth. The mutated beast's single blow had sent him flying. He couldn't believe it. Him, the #1 mage cultivator in the world, on the verge of death against this monster. Struggling to stand, Jinshin's heart leaped when he spotted familiar faces. Guijie and Suzy Hui. Relief washed over him. "Help me," he called out, his voice cracking with desperation. Guijie approached, her eyes gleaming in a way that sent a chill down his spine. She knelt beside him, grasping his trembling hand. "I never thought you'd actually come looking for the Pisces pendant, just because I asked you to. Always a good guy, huh?" Her smile twisted into something cruel as she slipped his storage ring from his finger. "Consider this my final gift from you. I'll always remember how generous you were." Jinshin's eyes widened. Before he could process what was happening, she pulled away, and right there, in front of his broken body, Guijie leaned into Suzy Hui, their lips meeting in a mocking kiss. His heart shattered. "No, this can't be real," he whispered, his vision blurring. But it was real. As if reading his thoughts, Guijie pulled away from Suzy Hui and looked back at him. "We're in love, Jinshin. You've always been a nuisance, so we've come to get rid of you." Pain and betrayal overwhelmed him, a wave of agony far worse than his physical injuries. These two, the people he trusted more than anyone, had turned on him. With that, the darkness took him. But just as his consciousness faded, something unexpected stirred around his neck. The Pisces pendant. A rush of energy surged through him, forcing his spirit back into his body. The next thing he knew, Jinshin's eyes shot open to the blaring sound of an alarm. He slapped the clock off with a groan. "What the?" His breath caught as he glanced around. He was in a dorm room, his dorm room, back at university. "What? How am I still alive?" "I was killed by the torch dragon," his heart pounded. He quickly checked the date. August 7th, 2040. The day before the start of the game, 10 years ago. Realization hit him like a lightning strike. "I've been reborn?" Memories flooded back. There was a rumor in the 8 Wastelands. The supreme divine artifact, the Pisces pendant, could revive its wearer. He never believed it, but the pendant, he had kept it around his neck instead of in his storage ring. That decision saved his life. If Guijie had taken it with the rest of his treasures, he would be dead for good. His fist clenched. He had loved Guijie for 10 years. He had trusted Suzy Hui like a brother. And in return, they had stolen everything from him. His wealth, his treasures, and left him to die. But not this time. The heavens had given him a second chance, and he swore they would feel the same betrayal tenfold. Jinshin's eyes hardened. "This time, I'll make you both pay." Jinshin sat on the edge of his bed, still processing his rebirth, when his phone buzzed. Miss Frenzy flashed across the screen. He answered with a smirk. "Long time no see, Miss Frenzy." "Long time no see, my ass," she shot back. "We had hot pot together yesterday." Jinshin chuckled. It had been years since he'd heard her voice, but to her, only a day had passed. She didn't know that, though. "Not yet. I've got something big to tell you," Miss Frenzy continued. "You might want to sit down for this, and don't freak out, okay?" He already knew what was coming. 10 years ago, on this exact day, she had made the same call, telling him she'd seen Guijie with another man. Back then, he didn't believe her. He cut her off, blinded by loyalty to Guijie. But this time, he was ready. "Go ahead." "Wait, are you apologizing?" she asked, clearly thrown off by his calm tone. "Just a little emotional, that's all," Jinshin replied, keeping his voice steady. Miss Frenzy sounded confused, but she pushed on. "Look, I don't want to shock you, but I just saw Guijie. She was with another guy, kissing him, and she climbed into his sports car right after." There was a pause. "I understand," Jinshin said simply. The silence on her end was almost comical. "Hold on, that's it? No yelling? No arguing? I'm serious, Jinshin. She's cheating on you." "I believe you," he said, his voice calm but with a weight that implied something deeper. "But there's something I need to tell you." "Okay, now you're freaking me out. Why are you being so calm? Are you okay?" Jinshin shifted gears, ready to drop a different bombshell. "You know the game 8 Wastelands, right?" "Of course. Everyone's talking about it. It's all over the place." "Good. I'm thinking about going pro in that game." Miss Frenzy paused, clearly taken aback. "Wait, you? A professional esports player? Are you serious?" Jinshin smiled to himself. "More serious than you think. No one realizes it yet, but 8 Wastelands isn't just some virtual reality game. In 5 years, it'll merge with reality. Everything in the game. The treasures, abilities, even the NPCs and bosses. They'll all descend into the real world. Well, if anyone can pull it off, it's you. You've always been insanely good at games." Jinshin leaned back, taking a deep breath. "I'm serious, Miss Frenzy. I'm moving out of my dorm soon. I'll rent a place and devote myself entirely to the game." Miss Frenzy was quiet for a moment, clearly surprised. "You're really okay? Aren't you? I was worried after, the whole cheating thing." Jinshin smiled faintly. "Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for the support." As she was about to hang up, he quickly interrupted. "Wait, don't hang up yet. Why? She asked, sounding confused. He hesitated, glancing at his billing records. I went over my limit yesterday. I kinda need a favor. I maxed out my account. Think you could lend me some cash? Miss Frenzy immediately shut him down. No way. I'm broke too. Thanks to you spending a fortune on that fancy gift for Guijie yesterday. Remember that? Before he could respond, she hung up. Jinshin groaned, wishing he had been reborn just a day earlier so he could have saved the cash. But then his phone buzzed, a message from Miss Frenzy. She'd sent him 10,000 yuan with a voice note. Here's my gym membership for a few years. Pay me back soon, or I'll turn you into my punching bag if I can't work out. Jinshin laughed, recording a quick reply. Don't worry, I'll pay you back. Promise. Night fell, and Jinshin sat in front of his screen, watching the clock. 1 second to midnight. He clenched his fist, excitement pulsing through him. This is it. As the clock struck midnight, the ring on his hand activated, glowing softly. He raised it to his eyes, feeling the familiar rush as the game's system synced with him. Moments later, he was logged into the game, 8 Wastelands. Finally, after 10 long years, he had returned to the place where his journey began. Jinshin materialized in the beginner's area. Around him, players marveled at the beauty of the AI avatar that welcomed them. But Jinshin wasn't fooled. He knew the AI wasn't just some simple guide. It was the first real challenge. I've learned my lesson. This time, I'm prepared. While most players were captivated by the AI avatar's beauty, with some openly declaring their desire to make her their in-game wife, Jinshin could only shake his head in disappointment. Idiots, he thought, watching as their improper comments grew louder. Lady Nuwa isn't someone you can joke about like that. The noise escalated, and suddenly, Nuwa's serene expression shifted. Without warning, she raised her hand, and a portal appeared beneath the rowdiest players. They were sucked in before they could react, vanishing in a swirl of light. Panic spread among the others. They never thought an NPC could get angry. Jinshin mused unfazed. He knew exactly where that portal led. If they were lucky, they'd face mere confinement. If not, their attributes would be permanently reduced. Approaching Nuwa with a respectful nod, Jinshin bowed slightly. Sister Nuwa, he greeted politely. His actions were a stark contrast to the chaos around him. Nuwa's eyes softened, pleased by his demeanor. Do you truly wish to step onto the path of cultivation and become an immortal? She asked. Jinshin smiled, answering with confidence. Yes, my name is Jinshin, and I humbly request your blessing on this path. Nuwa considered him for a moment, then nodded. Very well, mortal. I shall bestow upon you a good fate. Jinshin's heart raced. A new innate talent. In his previous life, his talent, business prodigy, had been more of a burden than a blessing. Sure, it gave him a 10% discount on purchases, but it became useless later in the game. He braced himself, half expecting to receive the same lackluster talent again. But as the familiar system notification appeared, his eyes widened in shock. Innate talent. Alter fate. Jinshin's breath caught in his throat as the details unfolded before him. This is different. The talent came with 3 abilities. 1. Born against heaven's will. His innate attributes would all be maxed out instantly, but with a cost. Each time he died, his attributes would decrease by 10%. 2. Against heaven's law. After breaking through to a new realm, his attributes would be doubled. However, it came with a steep price. He would have to face a heavenly tribulation, and if he failed, his soul would be erased. 3. Luck against heaven's will. With every breakthrough, he would receive a random new talent as a reward. But there was a catch. Each realm breakthrough would require him to meet a heavenly great condition. Jinshin stared in shock at his new talent, Alter Fate. It was undeniably powerful, but equally dangerous. The greater the risks, the better the rewards, he thought, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. Nuwa then prompted him. Now, choose your avatar. A series of avatars appeared before him, each with its own unique traits. Jinshin took his time, scrolling through the options. They may all look similar, but their stats can vary greatly, he reminded himself, thinking back to his past mistakes. In his previous life, he had chosen a goofy-looking avatar with an afro out of sheer boredom. Being handsome in reality had made him want to change. But soon after entering the game, he realized how much that decision had hurt his progress. Players with high charisma gained favor with NPCs, received better quests, and even had opportunities to dual cultivate with powerful NPCs. Not this time, Jinshin thought, determined to correct his past blunder. After a few minutes, he found it a model with the highest charisma among all the basic avatars. This time, I'm going to be the most charming player in the game. Nuwa smiled, clearly pleased with his choice. "Now, choose your starting location," she said, presenting him with a map of 4 lands: Yuehua, Yongning, Huafeng, and Muxian. Each land corresponded to one of the 4 main professions in 8 wastelands. Jinshin studied the options carefully. Yongning was perfect for magic cultivation. Yuehua specialized in medical cultivation. Muxian was suited for weapon cultivation. Huafeng focused on body cultivation. In my last life, I struggled because of my weak start. Not this time, Jinshin thought. He wasn't going to rush this decision. As he weighed his options, a system window opened, displaying his newly updated status. Innate talent, Alter Fate. Sect, none. Profession, none. Reputation, 0. Cultivation, Immortal. Innate Core Bone, 100 max. Innate Spirit, 100 max. Innate Comprehension, 100 max. Innate Charisma, 100 max. Innate Luck, 100 max. Jinshin's heart swelled with satisfaction. His core bone, spirit, comprehension, charisma, and luck all maxed out. These innate attributes would shape his journey. Core bone determined his potential for weapon and body cultivation, while spirit influenced magic and medical cultivation. Comprehension would help him learn skills faster, and his charisma meant NPCs would be eager to assist him. This time, with my attributes maxed from the start, becoming the number 1 cultivator is just a matter of time. He smirked, feeling the excitement building. The game world was his to conquer. Jinshin reflected on his past mistakes. Magic cultivation is great for team battles, but terrible in solo fights. Last time I got killed way too easily. He clenched his fists, remembering how he chose magic cultivation in his previous life to impress Guijie. Not this time. This time, I'm doing it for me. Without hesitation, he selected Muxian, the continent best suited for weapon cultivation. If I want to be number 1, I'll face attacks from all sides. Sword cultivation is perfect. It's unmatched in single target damage. Jinshin smirked. This life, I'll ride the wind with my sword and conquer the world of martial arts. As soon as he confirmed his choice, the system teleported him to Muxian Continent's beginner's village. The moment he arrived, nostalgia washed over him as he saw the sea of new players. Some were begging for high-level players to carry them through farms. Others were shamelessly flirting, and most were still in awe at how realistic the game felt. It's been so long since I've seen this many people in one place. Nearby, a crowd of players swarmed an old man, assuming he was an NPC with a hidden mission. Jinshin shook his head. Idiots. He chuckled to himself. There's no way a hidden mission would be handed out by such an obvious NPC. Letting the others waste their time, he calmly headed for the sword set, following the route he knew by heart. Suddenly, a female NPC approached him. She smiled and introduced herself as Chuan Yang, the owner of the tailor shop in the village. Her presence caused a stir among the players, who were now burning with jealousy. NPCs didn't usually initiate conversations with players, and yet, she was talking to Jinshin of her own accord. "I can arrange a special mission for you," she offered, wrapping her arm around his shoulder. Her voice softened as she moved closer. "You see, I've been alone ever since my husband passed away 5 years ago. If you find a quest too difficult, I can help you complete it." Jinshin froze for a second, taken aback. The power of maxed out charisma is no joke. He hadn't expected it to attract an NPC so quickly. If he completed the quest and raised his favorability with the widow, there was a high chance she'd offer him other opportunities in the future. Maybe even dual cultivation. He mused, momentarily tempted by the idea. But he quickly snapped back to reality. "No, I didn't come back to mess around with beauty distractions. My goal is to be the number 1 sword cultivator." Clearing his throat, he politely declined. "I've got other things to handle for now, but I'll come find you if I get the chance." Chuan Yang smiled, letting him go. "I'll be waiting. Don't forget about the mission." As he walked away, other players looked at him in shock. They couldn't believe he'd turned down a mission from an NPC, something they would have jumped at. Jinshin ignored them. "I can't waste time on side missions. The real opportunity lies ahead," he thought, his eyes locked on a rundown shop in the distance. Jinshin arrived at the rundown blacksmith shop. A few players were already leaving, shaking their heads in disappointment. "Don't bother going in," one of them said. "There's just a blacksmith inside, and he can't even speak. Probably deaf or something." "Yeah, total waste of time," added another, clearly annoyed. "Better head to the village entrance. I heard someone there's giving out real missions." Jinshin smiled politely, thanking them for the advice. "I'm just taking a look around. As he walked inside, ignoring their warnings, the players grumbled behind him, upset that he didn't listen, but quickly lost interest, deciding to chase after the potential mission at the village entrance. Fools, Jinshin thought. They don't realize the blacksmith is the most important NPC in this village. Inside, the blacksmith was completely absorbed in his work, oblivious to the players' complaints. His hammer struck the metal again and again, but something was off. The weapon he was crafting wasn't taking shape. Frustration was etched on the man's face as he worked, trying to figure out the issue. Jinshin immediately knew the problem. The fire's too weak. The temperature isn't high enough. Sensing an opportunity to gain the blacksmith's favor, he quietly stepped forward and began to help stoke the forge, pulling the bellows to increase the flames. The blacksmith paused, noticing the sudden change. As the fire roared back to life, realization dawned on him. He nodded in appreciation as he resumed his work, the weapon finally beginning to take shape under his skilled hands. After a few minutes of hammering, the blade gleamed brightly, perfect at last. With a wide grin, the blacksmith turned to Jinshin. "Thank you for helping with the bellows. My apprentice isn't around today, so the forge wasn't properly tended to. You saved me a lot of trouble." Jinshin gave a humble nod. "This is exactly what I was aiming for." The blacksmith walked over to a rack of weapons. "As thanks, you can borrow any weapon here for a day," he offered. "But remember, you'll need to return it by tomorrow." Most players would have been disappointed by such a short-term reward, likely seeing it as a waste of time. But Jinshin, being a veteran of the game, knew better. He confidently chose a simple iron sword, normal grade, with a strength of 3. For beginners, this might seem underwhelming, but I know what happens when I return it. The blacksmith watched his choice with approval. "Good pick," he said. "Now, I'll give you another opportunity. If you can bring me 10 venomous fangs from green pit vipers, I'll have something special for you." Jinshin accepted the mission, marking the official start of his sword cultivation journey. Outside, the players who had mocked him earlier were shocked to see him walk out of the blacksmith shop holding a weapon. "Hey, how did you get that sword?" one of them asked, curiosity piqued. Jinshin smirked, thinking fast. "Oh, it's simple," he said confidently. "The blacksmith just broke up with his girlfriend. He's heartbroken. All you have to do is sing him a love song, and if you touch his heart, he'll reward you with a weapon." The players' eyes lit up, amazed at how easy the task sounded. "Is that it?" one of them asked. "Yep," Jinshin said, trying to hold back his laughter. "Just make sure your singing moves him." Eager to get their hands on a weapon, the players immediately gathered outside the blacksmith's workshop, breaking into awkward love songs, each trying to outsing the other. Jinshin stepped back, enjoying the ridiculous sight from afar. Inside, the blacksmith's face contorted in anger. He was already stressed from the day's work, and now a group of players was serenading him with off-key love songs. He stormed out, hammer in hand, yelling, "Get lost!" The players, confused, mistook his frustration for some hidden signal. "He must be testing us," one player said excitedly. "Out, all of you!" the blacksmith bellowed. "Before I use this hammer on your heads." That did the trick. The players scattered in all directions, realizing they'd been played. Furious, they swore to find Jinshin and get their revenge. But by that time, Jinshin was already deep in the bamboo forest, well ahead of them. As Jinshin navigated the dense woods, he stayed alert, knowing the green pit vipers could strike at any moment. Sure enough, one suddenly lunged from the shadows, but Jinshin's reflexes kicked in. With a swift swing of his sword, the snake was taken down in a single blow. His cultivation increased by 3, and to his surprise, the viper dropped several items. A normal-grade green viper bow, a viper sword, and a snakeskin storage bag. Is this because of my maxed-out luck? He wondered, knowing that the game's equipment drop rate was notoriously low. He shrugged it off and continued hunting, curious to see how much more loot he could gather. By the time he finished clearing the snake-infested forest, Jinshin had a bag full of equipment, far more than he expected. Apart from the 10 venomous fangs he needed for the mission, he had collected over 100 poisonous arrows and a significant amount of copper coins. Satisfied with his haul, Jinshin headed back to the village. Upon reaching the blacksmith shop, he handed over the 10 venomous fangs. The blacksmith inspected them and nodded approvingly. "Good quality. You've done well," he said, reaching into a drawer. "Here, as promised." He handed Jinshin a sealed envelope. "This is it?" Jinshin thought excitedly. The envelope contained an invitation to join the Sword Sect, a crucial step toward his goal of becoming the strongest sword cultivator. Has anyone else accepted this mission? Jinshin asked, curiosity getting the better of him. The blacksmith shook his head. You're the only one so far. Jinshin smiled, knowing he was already ahead of the crowd. While other players wasted time chasing trivial missions and figuring out basic mechanics, he was laser-focused on his path. With the invitation in hand, Jinshin left the shop. His next move was clear: become a disciple of the Sword Sect as soon as possible. Before heading to the Sword Sect, Jinshin made his way to the market to sell the loot he had gathered from slaying the green pit vipers. His prized item was the rare green viper bow, something that had a high demand but was incredibly scarce in the server. Standing in the middle of the bustling market, Jinshin made his announcement loud and clear. I'm selling the only green viper bow in the entire server. Highest bidder wins. I wouldn't be parting with it, but I need the cash to marry a wife. The crowd immediately stirred. Players from all over the area rushed in, eager to grab this rare item. The bidding started at 1,500 and rapidly climbed. Jinshin watched, amused, as the numbers flew higher. Then, out of nowhere, a female player stepped forward and offered 50,000 in one bold move. She was accompanied by several others, her presence demanding attention. No one knew who she or her group were, nor which guild they represented. I only pay in cash, she said, her tone confident. The money will be transferred to your account immediately. Jinshin, impressed by the bold bid, was just about to close the deal when another voice interrupted. 60,000. The new bidder walked forward with a calm, commanding presence. It was Wang Jinghao, the president of the Wanshur Guild, one of the most powerful groups in the game. A murmur spread through the crowd. Jinshin's expression shifted. Wang Jinghao already? He hadn't expected to run into the guild leader this early in the game. In his previous life, Wanshur had tried to recruit him after he broke into the top 10 leaderboards. When Jinshin refused, Wang Jinghao held a grudge that cost him dearly. Wang Jinghao smiled. You must be quite something, getting a rare weapon right after the server launched. I admire your ability. Since you're selling this to earn money to marry, let me cover the entire amount. Consider it a friendly gesture. Jinshin politely declined. I appreciate the offer, but a gentleman doesn't accept charity. I'm just here to sell my item, not looking for any favors. I hope you understand. Using the marrying a wife excuse was a mistake, Jinshin thought, slightly regretting his earlier words. Wang Jinghao laughed lightly. Of course, I understand, but you have resolve and skill, and our guild could use a bow like that. I'm more than willing to buy it. As he reached for the bow, the female player from earlier raised her bid again. 70,000, she said calmly, completely ignoring Wang Jinghao's presence. The crowd gasped. No one dared to go against Wang Jinghao, especially not in such a bold manner. The tension was palpable as the bidding war reignited. Jinshin's eyes gleamed, enjoying the battle of wits and wealth. He was curious about the mysterious woman and her background. Which guild is she from? He wondered. She's not giving Wang any face at all. The bidding escalated further, with Wang Jinghao determined not to back down. The price soared to 300,000, then 400,000, and finally hit a staggering 500,000. Wang was visibly strained, caught between his desire for the bow and the embarrassment of being outbid in public. Sensing Wang's frustration, Jinshin smirked inwardly. Let's see how far this goes. Wang Jinghao, now desperate, attempted to use his guild's reputation as leverage. Do you know who I am? He said, his voice filled with authority. I'm the president of the Wanshur Guild. You should think carefully before bidding further. But the mysterious lady remained unfazed. Her calm demeanor and readiness to spend such a hefty sum on beginner's equipment only fueled speculation among the onlookers. Players whispered among themselves, convinced that her background must be extraordinary for her to challenge the young master of Wanshur Guild so openly. The lady raised her eyebrow, unfazed by Wang Jinghao's threats. The highest bidder wins. How is making an offer going against someone? Are you trying to say others can't buy the things you want? Wang Jinghao was momentarily speechless. He hadn't expected such a bold response. Realizing he was up against a formidable opponent, he decided to withdraw from the bidding war. But just as he was about to leave, Jinshin stepped in. I've long heard of Wanshur Guild's reputation, Jinshin said smoothly. If you're willing to pay the 500,000, I'll sell the bow to you. In exchange, I hope to earn your guild's support in the future. Wang Jinghao paused, studying Jinshin's face for any sign of deceit. Do you really mean that? Jinshin nodded confidently. Yes. After a moment's consideration, Wang Jinghao accepted the deal. Fine. If you run into any trouble, Wansher Guild will be there to help you. He then asked for Jinshin's account number and transferred the money without hesitation. Jinshin hid his satisfaction behind a polite smile. Perfect, he thought. I've left a good impression for now, and I can leech off him later. As Wang Jinghao turned to leave, he glanced at the lady, smirking. I won't hold a grudge because you're beautiful, but I hope you've learned your lesson. You should consider joining my guild. Jinshin chuckled to himself. What an idiot, spending 500,000 just to save face. He knew that once Wang Jinghao used the bow, he'd realize that the poisonous arrows were limited. Even worse, he'd waste hours on annoying beginner missions, burning time and energy on an item that wasn't worth it. But for now, Wang Jinghao was clueless and even grateful to Jinshin. Meanwhile, the lady's temper flared. You're pathetic, she snapped, glaring at Jinshin. Bowing down to the powerful like a dog. With her group in tow, she stormed off, clearly enraged by Jinshin's betrayal. Jinshin frowned slightly, realizing he might have taken things too far. I really pissed him off. I need to find a way to repay them. A few hours later, in the wild boar forest, the lady led her group on a hunting mission. Split up, she ordered. Each of you find and kill 2 wild boars. Let's finish this quickly. The team dispersed into the forest, charging off to complete their mission. As the lady prepared to move, a figure appeared behind her. It was Jinshin. The lady narrowed her eyes at Jinshin, her suspicion evident. Why did you follow us all the way here? Jinshin smiled, unfazed. I'd like to speak with you privately. Just 2 minutes, that's all. She wasn't as angry with him as before, mostly because she suspected that he had been caught up in the reputation of the Wansher Guild. After all, she had noticed that Jinshin and Wang Jinghao didn't seem familiar with each other. Deciding to give him one more chance, she nodded slightly, willing to hear him out. I have top-secret information, Jinshin said, his voice lowering conspiratorially. Information that could give your guild a serious edge over other players. But it'll cost you 500,000. The lady crossed her arms, skepticism written all over her face. And why didn't you sell this important information to Wang Jinghao earlier? He was practically begging to support you. Wouldn't it have been more beneficial to sell it to him? Jinshin smirked, confidence oozing from him. Wang Jinghao isn't worthy of supporting me. I was just playing along to get rid of him. He's a nobody, no power, no real money. I've got no choice but to endure him to survive for now. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, Jinshin thought to himself. Since she clearly hates Wang Jinghao, maybe there's a chance we could work together. The lady eyed him cautiously, still skeptical. His attitude toward Wang Jinghao changed a little too quickly, she thought. So, do you want the information or not? Jinshin pressed. He flashed his account number on his screen. Once you pay, I'll give you everything. I'm no scammer. She hesitated, weighing her options. What if he's telling the truth? If this information is real, it'd be a missed opportunity. After a brief pause, she decided to take the gamble. With a tap, she transferred the money to his account. Jinshin grinned, inwardly celebrating. $1 million already, and I've just started the game. Perfect. While money will become useless once the game merges with reality, it's crucial for building my future for now. Once the payment went through, Jinshin leaned in, lowering his voice. Stop killing the wild boars. Go back and accept a mission from the blacksmith. The lady's eyes widened in outrage. Are you kidding me? You're trying to scam me. Everyone knows the blacksmith doesn't give missions. Her hand moved toward her weapon, thoughts racing. Could he be working with Wang Jinghao? Was this whole thing a setup? Anger flared, and her mind was made up. She'd make sure Jinshin didn't leave the wild boar forest alive. Just as the lady was about to unsheath her sword in anger, Jinshin quickly intervened. Wait, the reason you haven't gotten a mission from the blacksmith is because you're doing it wrong. She hesitated, still gripping her sword, eyeing him suspiciously. Jinshin continued calmly. To get a mission from the blacksmith, you have to help him blow his bellows for 5 minutes while he's working. Only then will he offer you the mission. If you're still unsure about the information, let one of your subordinates try it. But do it discreetly. If too many people find out, the information becomes worthless. The lady remained silent, processing his words. Jinshin leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. And the mission? That's not the important part. It's the reward that matters. The Sword Sect invitation. The lady's eyes widened, recognizing the significance. Jinshin smiled. Once you have the invitation, you'll know where the Sword Sect is, and that's your ticket to joining them. I said what I needed to. Whether you act on it or not, that's up to you. As Jinshin turned to leave, the lady called after him. Wait, why sell this information to me? Why not keep it for yourself? Jinshin chuckled and, without missing a beat, replied, I don't know. Maybe it's because you're quite sexy. For a brief moment, the lady was caught off guard, her cheeks reddening ever so slightly. But the flirtatious moment was cut short when her group members came sprinting towards them, panic clear on their faces. We're screwed, one of the girls shouted. We accidentally bumped into the boss. The lady's eyes widened as she saw the massive wild boar charging towards them, far larger than the others they had encountered. Retreat, she commanded. We don't have enough people to take down a boss like that. But before they could scatter, Jinshin stepped forward, a confident grin on his face. Your luck's actually pretty good, running into the biggest boss in the beginner's village. Since you're all backing down, I'll take it on myself. Everyone was stunned by his boldness. You're gonna fight the Wild Boar King alone? One of the girls asked in disbelief. Jinshin casually turned back toward the lady. Mind if I borrow your sword? Sold my bow, remember? Without hesitation, she tossed her sword to him. Do whatever you want, but I'm not helping you. If you're that eager to die, it's on you. Jinshin caught the sword with a smirk. Thanks. One of the girls sighed, clearly concerned. He's just throwing his life away. Another added, maybe he's trying to impress our leader. Thinks he can hit on her by showing off. The lady, now blushing, snapped at her. Shut up before I beat you. At the same time, Jinshin was locked in a fierce battle with the Wild Boar King. He quickly realized he was in trouble. The sword he borrowed wasn't strong enough. If only he had held on to the bow a little longer, this fight would have been over by now. No matter how many times he struck the boar, its HP barely dropped. Even when he aimed for its weak points, the damage was minimal. Frustrated, Jinshin changed his approach. No point in fighting this thing head-on, he thought, eyes narrowing. He knew it was time to use his brains instead of brute force. With a smirk, he turned and sprinted away. The girls watching from a distance assumed he had given up. One of them chuckled. Look at him run. It's kind of cute, but he's not getting away. No chance. The lady sighed, shaking her head. No one asked him to show off in the first place. But he's still a beginner. It's fine if he dies a few times. Maybe it'll teach him to stop bragging. Meanwhile, Jinshin was nearly at a dead end, a wall rising up in front of him. But just as the boar charged toward him, he performed a wall tap, using the momentum to leap out of the way. The Wild Boar King slammed headfirst into the wall, taking heavy damage from both the impact and the rocks that tumbled down on top of it. The girls gasped in shock. Did he just make the boar hurt itself? One of them muttered in disbelief. Jinshin saw his chance. The boar was severely weakened, panting heavily, and barely able to stand. Without wasting a second, he dashed forward, landing multiple critical strikes on its battered body. The boar, enraged, launched a final, desperate charge at him. Jinshin was caught off guard, not expecting it to still have any fight left. But his reflexes kicked in. He dodged the attack at the last second and countered with a swift strike to its horn, shattering it and dropping the boar's HP even further. Realizing this was the moment to finish things, Jinshin leaped onto the boar's back. Channeling all his strength, he filled his sword with chi and drove it straight into the creature's skull. With a final roar, the Wild Boar King collapsed. A notification flashed before Jinshin's eyes. Cultivation level increased to 7. Chi refining stage. He grinned in satisfaction. Reaching the Chi refining stage meant he had officially become a cultivator. But there was more. Another notification appeared. Fate-altering talent activated. Innate talent against Heaven's Law has doubled your attributes. Jinshin's heart raced. His gamble had paid off. His cultivation had skyrocketed far faster than he expected. And it was all thanks to his luck and running into the Wild Boar King. But then, another message appeared. Fate-altering talent activated. New random talent granted by Born Against Heaven's Will. Jinshin's eyes widened as the notification flashed in front of him. Random talent confirmed. Seed of Vitality granted. Vitality increased by 10%. Can be upgraded 3 times. His heart raced with excitement. This was the perfect reward for someone like him, fragile in the early stages of cultivation. While his attributes had already doubled thanks to his talent, the added boost in vitality was like a lifeline. Most cultivators at the Chi refining stage only had around 10,000 HP. Now, Jinshin had 20,000. Another notification popped up. Congratulations! You are the first player to kill a boss in the beginner's village in 8 Wastelands. Would you like to hide your name? Jinshin smirked. No reason to hide, he replied confidently. In an instant, his achievement was broadcasted to every player in the game. Lin Jinxian has slain the first boss in the beginner's village. Reward, 200 reputation points and 1 point of innate luck. Players across the game were stunned. Someone already killed the boss? The game just started. Guilds began speculating. Some thought Jinxian belonged to a major guild and had used a human wave strategy to overwhelm the boss, with him landing the final hit. Others believed he was just incredibly skilled. Meanwhile, the lady couldn't believe her eyes. He actually did it. He really killed the boar by himself? Jinxian's rewards started rolling in. Spiritual grade Crimson Cloud Sword, Spiritual grade Illuminating Staff, and a Spiritual grade technique, Shadow Step. He had expected good drops thanks to his max luck, but this was beyond even his expectations. Suddenly, the sky darkened and thunder rumbled ominously. A new notification appeared. Heavenly Tribulation will descend in 30 minutes. Please prepare and proceed with caution. Jinxian froze. He instantly remembered the side effect of his Alter Fate talent. Whenever he broke through a stage, a Heavenly Tribulation would be summoned. If he failed to survive it, his soul would be erased from existence. Damn it, I knew this was coming, he muttered under his breath. There was no time to waste. He had to find a powerful expert, someone who could help him survive the tribulation. Just as he was about to make a run for it, the lady approached him again. Wait, can we be friends? She asked, her tone much softer than before. I'd like to buy any equipment you find in the future. I'll offer you a fair price, I promise. Jinxian quickly flashed his ID to the lady. Add me, he said with a grin before dashing off. I've got something urgent to take care of. The lady blinked, stunned at his sudden exit. What's so urgent that he's running like his life depends on it? She wondered aloud. Does he think we're scarier than the Wild Boar King? Meanwhile, Jinxian sprinted non-stop, his heart racing as fast as his legs. He finally arrived at the entrance of the sect, panting heavily. His thoughts were frantic. Please let there be an expert here. Someone who can help me survive this tribulation. Without hesitation, he shouted, Disciple Lin Jinxian is here to seek a master. One of the sect disciples raised an eyebrow, puzzled by Jinxian's frantic pace. What's he running from? Looks like he's rushing to be reincarnated. Suddenly, the sky darkened, clouds swirled, and thunder cracked ominously overhead. The sect disciples glanced up, their expressions shifting from confusion to alarm. Moments ago, the sky had been clear. The sect leader, a commanding figure with an enchanting aura, arrived on the scene. Her very presence seemed to demand respect, and even the most stoic disciple felt a shiver. What's causing this disturbance? She asked, her voice calm but authoritative. The disciples greeted her with bowed heads. Sect leader, the sky changed without warning, one of them explained. The sect leader's eyes narrowed. This is a heavenly tribulation, she said. Which disciple or elder is attempting a breakthrough? Everyone shook their heads. No one knew. Suddenly, Jinxian's desperate voice echoed through the courtyard. Please, great masters, save me, he shouted, stumbling forward. The lightning above crackled ominously, fully charged and ready to strike. Jinxian, trembling, thrust the sect leader's letter forward, praying for a miracle. He knew his current abilities were nowhere near enough to survive the heavenly tribulation. The sect leader's eyes widened. A heavenly tribulation? At the chi refining stage? This was unheard of. Just as the first bolt of lightning was about to strike Jinxian, the sect leader raised her hand, forming a powerful protective barrier around him. The lightning struck the barrier, dispersing harmlessly into the sky. The weather returned to normal in an instant, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Jinxian exhaled in relief, his legs shaking from the adrenaline. Saved. If I had died, I would have had to restart the game, missing so many crucial opportunities. The elders, who had gathered around, looked at Jinxian with awe. Someone at the chi refining stage summoned a heavenly tribulation? Impossible, one elder exclaimed. This is the first time we've witnessed something like this, another elder murmured. He must be extraordinary. Elder Chiyue, a powerful figure with a piercing gaze, stepped forward, sizing Jinxian up. A genius like this, if he were to become an elder in the future, his master would gain immense prestige. Without hesitation, Elder Chiyue was the first to make her offer. Lin Jinxian, she said, her voice carrying both warmth and authority, become my disciple, and I promise to provide you with all the resources you need to cultivate. You will lack for nothing. Elder Qingsong stepped forward, a smirk on his face. Elder Chiyue, you're a female cultivator. It's not convenient for you to teach a male disciple. Let me handle him. It's more suitable for me. Elder Chiyue's eyes narrowed, her tone sharp. Qingsong, you've already got plenty of disciples. Why are you trying to snatch this one from me? Her voice dripped with irritation. The tension between the two elders was palpable, and the other disciples watched, eager to see what would happen next. Meanwhile, Jinxian could hardly contain his excitement. Just as I thought, Joining a sect is the best move. Not only can they help me with the tribulation, but now I've got multiple elders fighting to accept me as their disciple. I've really struck gold here. Despite his internal thrill, he reminded himself to play it cool. I can't seem too eager. Gotta maintain the right impression. Before either Elder Chiyue or Chingsong could argue further, the sect leader, Long Fei-yin, raised her hand. Enough. The two elders fell silent immediately, stunned by the command in her voice. The sect leader's gaze swept across them before she spoke again. I will accept Lin Jinshin as my direct disciple. A ripple of shock went through the gathered elders and disciples. The sect leader herself? She never takes on disciples. They exchanged glances, realizing just how exceptional Jinshin must be. Jinshin's heart skipped a beat as he heard her words. The sect leader wants me as her disciple? Long Fei-yin turned to Jinshin, her expression as cold as ever. Lin Jinshin, do you accept to become my direct disciple and cultivate within the inner hall? At that moment, Jinshin received a system notification. You have triggered the greatest opportunity within Tun'in Sect. Accept Long Fei-yin as your master? The choice was obvious. Without hesitation, Jinshin knelt down, bowing deeply. I accept you as my master, sect leader. A satisfied nod from Long Fei-yin followed. Very well. She then gestured for Jinshin to follow her, and as they walked together towards the inner hall, Jinshin couldn't help but marvel at her cold yet graceful demeanor. The Sword Palace is the core of Tianyin's sect, she explained as they approached. It's peaceful here, free from distractions. This is where you will cultivate from now on. Her voice remained distant, but her words were clear and precise. Jinshin nodded, absorbing every word. Quiet and away from the chaos, this is perfect. You will receive a newcomer package soon. A disciple will show you to your residence, she continued, her tone all business. Meet me at dawn in the main hall tomorrow. Don't be late. With that, she turned and began walking away. Jinshin watched her go, thoughts swirling in his head. She's cold and distant. Definitely not someone who gets close to her disciples. I need to be careful around her. He knew he had to tread carefully and not draw unnecessary attention. As he stood there, he made a quiet resolution. I'll lay low, train hard, and grow stronger in secret. 1 hour later, Jinshin sat outside, growing impatient. The guiding disciple who was supposed to show him to his dorm hadn't arrived. He decided to explore the inner hall himself. The place was sprawling, with countless residences. There might be hidden missions or surprises here. He hesitated before opening the first door. To his shock, he found himself staring at his sect leader, Long Fei-yin, in a bath completely naked. This is her room? He immediately averted his gaze. Apologies, sect leader, he stammered. Fei-yin, unamused, struck him down. Who gave you permission to enter my residence? Jinshin quickly explained that he had accidentally entered while searching for his dorm. I didn't mean to intrude. The guiding disciple never showed up. I hope this doesn't affect your view of me. Fei-yin, seeing his genuine mistake, decided not to punish him but warned, do not enter a residence without permission again. There won't be a next time. She handed him a pill, the mystical grade violet jade pill. This will help with your injuries. It increases your combat attributes by 30 points for 5 minutes and recovers 3,000 stamina outside of combat. Jinshin was taken aback by the sect leader's generosity. A spirit grade pill. He pocketed it, deciding to save it for later. As he left the room, he thanked Fei-yin and was greeted by Nan Gongyue, the guiding disciple, who had finally arrived. Junior brother, come meet your senior sister. Jinshin greeted her respectfully. She's the first person I've met in the sect, so she's automatically a senior. Nan Gongyue was pleased with his politeness, her favorability towards him rising to 10, casual. Gongyue introduced herself, saying she was at the final phase of the crystallization stage and offered her help for any future problems. Jinshin thought to himself, her favorability went up quickly. 8 Wastelands really does reward good looks. He complimented her. I didn't expect someone as beautiful as you to be so highly skilled. I'm truly impressed. Gongyue blushed. I didn't think you'd be such a flatterer. Jinshin added with a grin. There's an old saying. To improve your cultivation, you need more than just hard work. Sometimes, a little flattery can go a long way. Gongyue chuckled, her favorability increasing by another 5 points, bringing it to 15, still casual. Jinshin noted, it's easier to get along with Gongyue compared to my icy master. He pondered the favorability system. 1 to 10, familiar. 11 to 20, casual. 21 to 30, companion. 31 to 40, close. 41 to 50, shared hearts. 51 to 60, intimate relationship. 61 to 70, congenial love. 71 to 80, perfect unison. 81 to 90, sworn everlasting love. 91 to 100, until death do us part. Different favorability levels unlock hidden missions and opportunities. As Jinshin walked alongside Gong Yue, he thought about how favorability with NPCs could lead to physical interactions, or even a Dao couple status at perfect unison, which unlocks dual cultivation. That's a lot of potential, but it's tough to build favorability. In my previous life, many players who got too involved with NPCs ended up in trouble. Suddenly, he started coughing up blood. Gong Yue noticed and asked, "What's wrong? When did you get hurt?" Jinshin thought quickly. I need to use the pill the Sect leader gave me to heal, but I also see an opportunity here. He wiped the blood from his mouth and said, "It's nothing serious. Before you arrived, I accidentally stumbled into the Sect leader's residence and got a minor injury." Gong Yue looked distressed. "I'm so sorry. I was supposed to guide you, but I got caught up in a romance novel." She handed him a key replenishing pill. "Take this. It will help with your recovery." Jinshin accepted it with feigned humility, but was thrilled about getting another freebie. "Can't complain about this." Gong Yue continued, "It's my fault for being late. Please don't blame yourself." Jinshin reassured her, "No need to blame yourself. I should have been more careful." Touched by his words, Gong Yue's favorability increased by 5 points, reaching 20 casual. She then handed him a spirit-gathering jade pendant. "This is a small token of my apology. It boosts your defense by 10, heart protection by 5, and recovers 1% of mana every second when not in combat. It also has a skill, Spirit Shield, that blocks attacks from enemies below the crystallization stage. It has a 15-minute cooldown." Jinshin expressed his gratitude. "This pendant is amazing, especially the Spirit Shield. It's a rare find even among spiritual-grade equipment." Gong Yue shrugged. "It's nothing special. I have plenty of treasures like it." Gong Yue informed Jinshin, "We should head to your residence now. All your basic beginner equipment is there." Jinshin thanked her and thought, "It's a good thing I know how to play my cards right. If not for my acting skills, I wouldn't have scored so many treasures right after joining the Sect. Treating NPCs like real people is the way to go, but only a returner like me knows that." A few minutes later, Gong Yue led him to the Earth-grade Spirit Gathering Formation. "You can absorb spiritual energy much faster here if you meditate. I'm a bit envious. We only have a mystical grade formation on my side." Jinshin marveled at the setup. Normally, new players would just find a quiet spot to meditate offline. But this Earth grade formation is a game changer. I didn't expect such a high-tier setup for my residence. With her mission complete, Gong Yue waved goodbye. "Work hard and make the most of it." Jinshin began his meditation in the formation. His speed increased by 52 points per hour, more than 10 times faster than normal at the key refining stage. With this rate, even if I'm away for 3 hours, I can max out my cultivation. Knowing his master would visit at dawn, he decided to log off for now. As he checked his phone, he saw that the deposit had been successfully made. 1.6 million yuan in just 5 hours. I can finally turn my tragic fate around in this life. With a smile, Jinshin felt a surge of optimism about his new opportunities. A few hours later, Miss Frenzy roared up to Jinshin's place on her motorbike, looking absolutely stunning. She parked and walked up to the door, where Jinshin was waiting. "So, why'd you call me over this early, especially when I was getting ready for my morning run at the stadium?" she asked with a playful grin. Jinshin casually replied, "It's nothing major. Just wanted to show you my new apartment." Her eyes widened as she stepped inside, glancing around. "Not bad at all," she said, clearly impressed. "Of course it's not bad," Jinshin smirked. "It's costing me 4,000 to 6,000 yuan a month, about $826. Miss Frenzy rolled her eyes and teasingly stepped behind him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. "So, this is where the gym membership money I gave you went? You're really living the high life, huh?" Jinshin chuckled. "Well, I didn't have a way to pay you back, so I figured it was better to spend it all as fast as possible. Maybe you'd forget about it that way." Her expression darkened instantly. "You've got some nerve," she growled before leaping onto his lap and grabbing him by the neck. "You used my money for this?" She shook him like a sandbag as he desperately tried to explain, but in the chaos, his hand accidentally grazed her chest. A brief, stunned silence filled the room before she shrieked in fury. "You pervert!" she yelled, ready to pummel him again. But before the storm could continue, a knock echoed from the door. "Delivery. Your gaming cockpit is here." "Wait a second," Jinshin called out, turning back to the furious Miss Frenzy. "I bought you a gaming cockpit with the money I earned in the game. If you don't take it, I'll refund it right now." Miss Frenzy paused, her anger melting as quickly as it came. "A gaming cockpit? For me?" Her voice softened. Well, if you've already bought it, there's no point in sending it back, she said, trying to play it cool but clearly excited. Jinshin grinned, feeling the tension in the room ease. One cockpit enough to cover my debt? He teased. It's a bit big for your school dorm, and your dad would probably smash it if you put it at home. How about keeping it here? I've got a room reserved for you. She couldn't help but laugh. Her mood completely turned around. Fine. It is the newest model, she said, pulling out her phone to take pictures and share with her friends. Jinshin sighed, shaking his head. Sure enough, money really does solve 99% of problems. As Miss Frenzy happily snapped photos, Jinshin logged back into the game, eager to keep grinding. The moment he appeared in-game, his master was waiting for him. Not bad, she said, her eyes glowing with approval. You're progressing faster than I've seen in a long time. Jinshin bowed slightly. Thank you for the praise, master. But I'm stuck at the chi refining initial stage. I'm not sure how to break through. In most cases, Jinshin thought to himself, players needed a special elixir to break through each stage. Deciding to test the waters, he glanced up at his master. I was wondering, do you happen to have an elixir that could help me move forward? His master nodded and pulled out a pill, its radiant glow signifying its potency. This is a high-quality chi condensing pill, she said. If you take it, you'll be able to break through to the intermediate phase. Jinshin's eyes lit up with excitement, and he gratefully reached out to accept it. But just as his fingers brushed the elixir, his master pulled her hand back. Not so fast, she said with a stern expression. While your talents may be exceptional, you must understand that true strength comes from more than just cultivation. A real cultivator has fought through countless battles and faced endless challenges. Jinshin paused, absorbing her words. What you're saying, master, is that flowers raised in a greenhouse may look beautiful, but they will never survive the harsh storms of the world. Only trees that weather the fiercest winds can stand tall for eternity. He sighed slightly, the truth sinking in. In his past life, he had already discovered that while you could improve cultivation realms by throwing money at it, battle experience could only be earned through hard-fought struggles. His master raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. You've got quite the insight for someone so young. She had never expected him to be so grounded, and her favorability towards him increased by 5 points, reaching the familiar level. Jinshin felt a small surge of pride. Earning his master's favor was a win, and part of him briefly entertained the idea of possibly making her fall for him someday. But no, he quickly pushed the thought aside. In this life, I'm focused on one thing, becoming the #1 sword cultivator. There's no room for distractions like love. His master, unaware of his inner thoughts, continued. Now, if you want that pill, you'll need to prove yourself. Head to the Sect mission area in the outer hall. Pick a mission suitable for the chi refining stage, and if you succeed, the spiritual pill will be yours. Jinshin nodded, accepting the challenge. But before he could leave, his master handed him a scroll. This is the Tian Heart Sutra, she said. It's a core heart technique that every disciple in the Tianyin sword sect must learn. Jinshin took the scroll gratefully. This is something all disciples learn, but most outer disciples have to earn it through missions. He grinned to himself. But I get it handed to me directly. Being a direct disciple has its perks. As morning broke, Jinshin made his way to the outer hall of the sect. Looking around, he noticed that the place was busier than expected. Looks like a lot of players have joined the sect, he thought. Makes sense. Even though the sect invitation mission is hidden, sharp players would eventually figure it out. Soon, more and more will flood in. But I was here first, and I've already secured my spot as a direct disciple. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice call his name. Jinshin. He turned to see Wanling, the girl he had sold information to earlier, waving at him with a bright smile. Jinshin was a little surprised to see her. So she really did join the sword sect after buying that info from me. He smiled back. Good. The more friends I have in this game, the better. Who knows? I might need her help in the future. Jinshin turned to Wanling, giving a casual nod. What a coincidence that we ended up in the same sect, he said. Wanling smiled. I've always loved swords, so of course I chose the sword sect. Without saying much more, Jinshin waved her off. I've got a mission to complete. Let's chat next time. Wanling's smile faltered a bit as he walked away, cutting their conversation short. He left so fast, she muttered, feeling a little disappointed. The girl beside her smirked. Jinshin's pretty cold. Huh? I bet it's going to be tough if you're trying to win him over. Wanling's cheeks turned bright red. She snapped back. What are you talking about? Which eye of yours sees me chasing after him? The other girl burst into laughter. What a pity. I was hoping to watch a good show. A girl chasing after a guy. Wanling huffed, embarrassed. Let's not waste any more time. We need to finish our mission. We still need 3 merit points to exchange for the Tianyin Heart Sutra. Her friend groaned. Ugh, don't remind me. It's so hard to earn merit points. We've done so many missions, and we're still 3 points short. How is anyone supposed to get the Tianyin Heart Sutra? Little did they know, Jin Shun had already received the Heart Sutra without breaking a sweat. As he scanned through the technique, deep in thought, the mission board attendant called out, "Next." Jin Shun stepped forward, greeted by the attendant's friendly but professional demeanor. "Choose a mission, but make sure it's within your capabilities," she advised. Jin Shun browsed the mission board, mentally weighing his options. Collecting mortal herbs? Too easy. Sure, I'd get experience, but it's just a waste of time. His eyes moved to the more advanced missions. Hunting chi refining stage monsters? Not bad for building combat experience, but nothing special. Then something caught his eye, a special plaque under the Hell difficulty section. His interest piqued. Jin Shun leaned in closer. The mission was based in Fangzhou City, a place he knew well. A special mission usually means special rewards. Without hesitation, he selected the mission. Almost instantly, a message popped up from the system. Hell-level mission selected. Retrieve the lost secret technique. The mission difficulty is extremely high. Low-realm disciples should proceed with caution. The mission's details appeared before him. A chi refining stage disciple named Zhang Hai was killed outside the sect, and the secret technique he carried was stolen. Your mission is to avenge him and recover the lost technique. Jin Shun's eyes narrowed. So this is a revenge mission? And the target is probably no pushover. But with the Tianyin Heart Sutra now boosting all his fighting attributes by 5%, Jin Shun felt confident. He had the advantage of being a returner, and this challenge would only help sharpen his skills. Fangzhou City. Huh? I'm familiar with that place. This is going to be interesting. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jin Shun accepted the mission. He knew that the rewards for completing a hell-level mission could propel him forward quickly, and besides, this was just the kind of challenge he needed to truly test his strength. The mission rewards flashed before Jin Shun's eyes. 100 lower-grade spiritual stones, 100 merit points, 1 upper-grade chi condensing pill, a spiritual-grade martial art skill, and a hidden reward. The girl at the mission board raised an eyebrow, concerned. "Are you sure you want to take this mission? It's extremely difficult. The person who killed Zhang Hai is likely at the chi refining stage final phase, much higher than your current realm. Besides, the sect doesn't allow disciples to accept new missions if they already have an incomplete one." Jin Shun smiled and nodded politely. "Thank you for the reminder, but I've made up my mind." Disciples nearby exchanged glances, clearly surprised. One of them scoffed. "He's gotta be joking. The mission hint clearly states the enemy is at the final phase of chi refining. There's no way he can handle that. He's practically asking to get killed." Another disciple chimed in, shaking his head. Even if he's crazy enough to face someone in a higher realm, the mission has too few leads. Finding the killer will be like searching for a needle in the ocean. He's just showing off, and we all know how that ends. Wait and see. He's going to be humiliated. Ignoring the chatter, Jin Shun headed off. Let them talk. By the time I'm done, I'll have the last laugh. Nightfall. Somewhere in Fangzhou City, Jin Shun arrived at the location hinted at in the mission. The dark, narrow alley buzzed with energy. He approached cautiously, the air heavy with tension. This is it. The trail begins here. Before he could even step inside the building, 3 beautiful, busty women approached him. Their movements were graceful, their eyes filled with respect. An immortal from the Tianyin Sword Sect, one of them purred. "Please come inside. Let us guide you." Jin Shun blinked, a bit caught off guard by their sudden appearance. What's this? Are they just welcoming me because of the sect, or is there something more going on? He kept his cool, nodding as they led him into the building. Jin Shun stepped into the building, his eyes scanning the room. In front of him stood a man, animatedly giving the latest updates about the world of immortals. Jin Shun recognized him instantly, the intelligence merchant from 8 Wastelands. Eleceed, Jin Shun muttered to himself. Just like in my past life. He's a lot like a reporter, always in the know, whether it's the big events or the small ones. Eleceed's job was simple, deliver breaking news to anyone willing to listen and make money while doing it. Jin Shun knew that if he listened closely, he'd find the clues he needed. After a series of mundane updates, Jin Shun's ears perked up. A disciple of the Tianyin Sword Sect named Zhang Hai was killed while journeying. The murderer is a rogue cultivator at the chi refining stage final phase, Zhou Hao, known for his ties to the demonic path. Jin Shun's eyes narrowed in satisfaction. Bingo! As the crowd dispersed, Jin Shun calmly approached Eleceed. "I need to purchase some information." Eleceed grinned knowingly. "Of course, as long as the money's right, I've got what you need." Without hesitation, Jin Shun tossed him a bag of spiritual stones. "Tell me where I can find Zhou Hao." Eleceed weighed the bag and smirked. Zhou Hao's often seen lurking in Fangzhou City's Red District. He's a leecher who spends his time with women and wine. Just as Eleceed was about to leave, he paused. "There's one more piece of information that could be quite important to you, but it'll cost you 5 more spiritual stones." Jin Shun didn't bat an eye. "No problem." He handed over the stones. Eleceed leaned in. "Zhou Hao isn't your only concern. He has an older brother, Zhou Shan. He's at the foundation stage, So if you cross him, you'd better be ready. Tread carefully, disciple. Zhou Xin, Jin Xin repeated, nodding. Got it. Meanwhile, somewhere in Fangzhou City at Autumn Moon Building, the air reeked of alcohol and cheap perfume as Zhou Hao staggered out of the Autumn Moon Building, clearly drunk. Two women clung to his arms, giggling as he promised, next time, both of you will have to queue up for me. Little did he know that Jin Xin was already on his trail, watching from the shadows. Zhou Hao weaved through the dimly lit streets, oblivious to the silent figure tailing him. As he wandered down a narrow forest path, something shifted in the air. Zhou Hao stopped, his instincts finally kicking in. Who's there? He shouted, his voice slurred. Jin Xin stepped out from the darkness, his eyes cold and determined. I am someone who wants your life. Zhou Hao chuckled, wiping his mouth. Huh, you're just a Tianyin disciple at the Qi refining stage initial phase, and you think you can take me down? You must be suicidal, boy. Jin Xin tightened his grip on his sword, his gaze never wavering. Underestimate me all you want. It'll be the last mistake you make. Zhou Hao sneered, his eyes gleaming with malicious intent. Let's see if you can back up that arrogance with your sword. Zhou Hao charged forward with his sword drawn, his eyes gleaming with malice. Tired of living, are you? He sneered, swinging his blade at Jin Xin. But before the strike could land, Jin Xin effortlessly dodged the attack, leaving Zhou Hao momentarily stunned. Unwilling to give up, Zhou Hao quickly spun his sword in a series of rapid, circular motions, attempting a counterattack. Yet, Jin Xin blocked every strike, and the two briefly lost their footing midair, hovering in a tense standoff. How are you this strong? Zhou Hao demanded, disbelief etched on his face. You're only at the Qi refining initial phase. Jin Xin smirked, his voice calm. It's not that I'm too powerful. You're just too weak. He thought to himself, that 5% boost in combat attributes from the Tianyin Heart Sutra really is no joke. Zhou Hao, enraged, activated his wild saber slash, a devastating technique that sent his blade slashing towards Jin Xin with reckless force. Jin Xin responded by activating his spirit shield, blocking the attack with ease. Smirking, Jin Xin thought, time to test out this spirit-gathering jade pendant Gongyue gave me. As Zhou Hao's attack collided with his shield, Jin Xin emerged completely unscathed, not a scratch on him. Zhou Hao's eyes widened. So many treasures, he spat. Looks like the sect favors you quite a bit. Hand them over, and I might spare your life. Jin Xin raised an eyebrow, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Who gave you the courage to ask me to hand over my stuff? Zhou Hao, no longer interested in talking, lunged at Jin Xin with all his might. But Jin Xin, moving with precision and speed, dodged every single strike. Zhou Hao's frustration grew, and realizing that prolonging the fight would only lead to his death, he made the desperate decision to retreat. Sensing the opportunity, Jin Xin charged forward, slashing through Zhou Hao's defenses. One powerful strike brought Zhou Hao's HP down by 90%, leaving him reeling in shock. How can one slash reduce 90% of my HP? Zhou Hao gasped. Jin Xin, now seeing Zhou Hao's stats more clearly, smirked. Zhou Hao's profession as a saber cultivator boasted an HP of 2,550, strength of 32, mental power of 30, defense of 28, and speed of 36. His Thunder Saber was a spiritual grade weapon, and he wielded the Wind Energy Saber technique at minor proficiency, alongside the Wind Saber / martial skill and Mist Piercing Charge Body technique, both at beginner levels. But even with all this, Jin Xun's base stats were far superior. His higher attributes, top-tier skills, and equipment gave him a significant edge. With Zhou Hao's defenses crumbling and his saber sustaining damage, Jin Xun mocked him. Weak chicken. Now, hand over the Tianyin Sword Sect's secret technique, or I'll finish you off. Zhou Hao, visibly shaken, dropped to his knees. I didn't realize how powerful you were. Please, I'll give you what you want. He reached into his robes to retrieve the technique, ready to surrender. But just as he extended his hand, a sudden sneak attack shot out from the shadows. Both Jin Xin and Zhou Hao reacted in an instant, narrowly dodging the surprise strike. From the shadows, a figure emerged. It was Zhou Shun, Zhou Hao's brother, standing several meters away with a cold expression. Brother, save me, Zhou Hao shouted, his voice trembling as he glanced at Jin Xin. You're really unlucky to run into my brother. He'll make you pay for every scar you left on me 100-fold. Jin Xun's eyes narrowed as he sensed the immense pressure radiating from Zhou Shun. He hadn't expected the foundation stage cultivator to be this much stronger. Zhou Shun, a rogue cultivator with a stern, no-nonsense demeanor, shot a furious glare at Zhou Hao. I warned you. Things are tense these days. I told you to stay on the mountain, but you wouldn't listen. He took a step forward, his voice low and menacing. If I hadn't come down in time, you'd be dead by now. Zhou Hao bowed his head, apologizing profusely. Brother, I swear I'll listen to you from now on. But first, avenge me. He's humiliated me. He must pay. Zhou Shin shifted his gaze to Jin Xun, a cruel smile forming on his lips. Hand over that spirit shield, and maybe I'll make your death quick. Otherwise, I'll carve you up so badly you'll beg for death. Jinshin simply laughed, not taking his words seriously. Villains always talk too much. Meanwhile, Zhou fumbled in his robes for an elixir. Brother, give me a moment. Let me recover my stamina, and I'll help you finish him. Before he could even bring the pill to his lips, Jinshin moved like lightning. His blade flashed, striking Zhou's neck with a critical hit, dealing 300 damage and leaving only a sliver of his health. Zhou's eyes went wide, gasping in shock. Without hesitation, Jinshin charged again, his sword gleaming under the moonlight. Zhou, caught off guard, could only watch in stunned disbelief as Jinshin's blade pierced through Zhou's throat. Blood splattered across the forest floor as Zhou let out a final, agonized scream before collapsing, lifeless. The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Zhou stood, motionless, his face twisted with fury as he stared at his brother's corpse. You killed him, Zhou growled, his voice barely a whisper, trembling with rage. Jinshin wiped the blood from his sword, unfazed. Looks like your brother didn't know the rule. Villains die when they talk too much. His tone was cold, cutting, and in case you haven't realized, my target has always been both of you. Double the loot, double the fun. Jinshin's eyes gleamed with deadly intent. Now, it's your turn to die.